My name is Bladow. I am a 2012 candidate for the Boise State Master of Educational Technology degree. This is my video reflection of some of the work I've completed over the course of this program. I have just begun working for Michigan Virtual University as an instructional designer. I actually found this position on the Boise State EdTech forums and used what I learned throughout the program to help me through the interview process to land the job. I live in rural Minnesota with my husband, 3 kids, a dog, and a cat. Working full-time, raising 3 kids, and completing my master's was difficult at times, but luckily I always enjoy a good challenge. I graduated with my elementary education degree from Moorhead State. I had always wanted to become a teacher. However, after graduations, teaching jobs were few and far between where we live. I started working as an education coordinator for our local county museum. While I enjoyed the job, I was still dreaming of becoming a teacher. In 2007, I got the opportunity, only it wasn't the traditional teaching job I had always thought of. I was hired at Blue Sky Online School as a middle school language arts teacher. About 2 weeks later, from the comforts of my home, I had 200 virtual students. Teaching online is fast-paced and an ever-changing world as online education was and still is trying to be defined. Because of my coursework at Boise State, I was often looked to assist in training and trying out new things with the school. In the fall of 2008, I was chosen by my peers to attend iNAQOL. This conference only instilled in me more that I had found my calling in online education. It was at iNAQOL that I talked to a rep from the MET program at Boise State that everything came together, and I knew my new career path would be in educational technology. So now, let's move into some of my favorite projects I have completed in my EdTech journey that has allowed me to have a career that I am passionate and excited about. The first course that I want to talk about is the very first course that we took, EdTech 501. The Introduction to Educational Technology is just a great way to start the program. Looking at the tech plan, that was a whole new side of the school I had never seen before. Even though it was an online school, I don't think technology-wise that it was any farther than any of the other brick and mortar type of schools out there. When the tech plan assignment came up in EdTech 501, I needed to take a look at our school's technology plan. This proved to be kind of a challenge, and nobody really knew where the technology plan was. Finally, somebody was able to locate it, and I was really surprised at the long 90-page document that it was, and it seemed very generalized. Once I read through it, our assistant director, she decided, we needed to have a technology committee. The school at this time, the online school I was working for, was growing by leaps and bounds, 20, 30, 40 new students a week. It was growing really fast, so the school was really trying to keep up with that. So I helped to form and start the school's technology committee, and I served on that for 3 years. Once the technology committee was established, then we all took a look at our tech plan. Having that experience on the technology committee and my coursework and my leadership that I had done for our online school, I was promoted to a technology integrationist by the school and later found out that our tech plan had now expired and we needed to write a new one. Having the background knowledge that we created in EdTech 501, I was able to write the school's new technology plan. At that time, our state was developing new rules and guidelines when it came to technology plans, so they came up with this technology bridge plan that would get us through a year, be able to still keep our funding for technology until they were able to develop what they wanted in the full plan. I, along with another teacher who was interested in technology, sat down and developed our technology bridge plan. We had to come up with a technology needs assessment and then sat down and came up with goals and strategies for how we would meet those goals throughout the next year. The school was able to receive its E-rate funding. The next course I want to go into is EdTech 502, the Internet for Educators. This ended up being one of my favorite courses. They also related to many real-world situations that we could use directly right into our classroom. I think if I were still teaching and going to be using this, I would definitely want to go into this site and spruce the beginning page up a little bit, as my skills are much better now. There are just a couple that I want to go in and talk a little bit more about that really meant something to me that I was able to utilize for my staff, for my students. The first one being the copyright scavenger hunt. When we were teaching online, there was very, very little training involved, and at that time we didn't have purchase curriculum. It was go and create your curriculum. It's out there on the internet, and we would just go out and we would find what we could on the internet, not really understanding, can we legally use this video? Can we legally use this story, this quiz? What can we legally do? This copyright lesson I actually created for the online teachers I was working with as a way to better understand copyright laws when creating and designing lessons. So we took a look at fair use and the Copyright Act. I found a great mashup video that really kind of put it in perspective in a visual, fun way. And then we created a scavenger hunt with this. I actually did use this in a staff development. We spent an hour with this. We broke off into groups, and everybody went off and did the scavenger hunt. And then we came back and talked about it. An understanding was brought forth on what we could actually legally use when we were creating our online lessons. The next one I want to go into is the Jigsaw Internet Search activity. This one I really liked, not only for being able to create this fun banner. I think this was also when we were introduced to the Adobe Cooler site that really looked at combining colors correctly together. I created a tools for educators, different Web 2.0 sites that I was using to either create my online curriculum or use with my online students, and again was asked to share during a staff development time. So instead of just sharing what I was using, I used that jigsaw activity. And this jigsaw technique is something that I've been able to use not only when I was working at the online school, but also I've done Moodle trainings and other trainings. I've brought that jigsaw technique with me. Again, instead of just listening to someone get up there and stand and be the expert, the idea of creating expert groups to work with and have the staff be experts themselves. So for this one we had 5 different expert groups. We looked at Podcast and Wordle, Blog and Skype, Wiki and SlideShare, Twitter and Voki, and Delicious and Toondoo. Staff would go out, they would research into this, they all had to come back with a created product and be the trainers themselves and train the other staff in how to use this. The last one I'm going to talk about is the virtual tour. The virtual tour I designed for my online middle school students. Prior to this, I had created an Anne Frank unit that we would study every year. And this, by far, was my students' favorite unit. They really enjoyed the Diary of Anne Frank and the other activities that we were creating with this. And so when it came to the virtual tour, this unit came to mind right away as a really good way for the students to get a closer look at the different things in Anne Frank's diary, learn more about the people in a fun and interactive way. Along with the virtual tour, I asked the students to keep a blog. The students often blogged about different things, so most of them were comfortable with writing a blog. Every time they made a visit on their tour, they'd take a visit to Nazi Germany, there would be a blog entry, something that they would have to write to. They would visit the secret annex and make a response in their blog. They would learn more deeply about the people involved in the Anne Frank story. And then lastly, about the concentration camps. So not only did they get to take this virtual tour and learn more about Anne Frank, they also got to produce their blog. Many of the students were very proud of their blog as something that they could look back on. The last project I want to talk about is from EdTech 512, online course design. At this time, I had actually created quite a few online classes for the online school I was working for, but again, there was no training and there was really also no planning time. Most of the assignments came out a week or two, sometimes maybe a few weeks before the students needed to access them, but we really weren't allowed a lot of planning time, nor did we have the background on different instructional design methods and models to use as we were developing. And so when I took 512, I was not teaching at that time. I was working as an independent contractor, and one of the companies I was working for was Focus Eduvation, and they were an online tutoring service provider that was selling their product to different brick and mortar tutoring facilities. And what they needed is they had sold a lot of packages of their online tutoring, but the companies weren't using them. So they brought me on as an online education consultant to see if I could help out. And what I noticed right away was a lack of training or a lack of understanding by the brick and mortar tutoring companies as to what online tutoring was and what it could do. So I used this as my problem to identify for our online course design. And here's our planning documents, the analysis where we got the chance to sit down and I met with the team and figured out what the problem was. And then we looked at the goal. So the goal of this training was going to be so that the client, the face-to-face or the brick and mortar tutoring center, would be able to successfully use and market online tutoring to their students and parents. So after we created the planning document for our online course design, then we went into actual course design. Since I was familiar with Moodle, I decided to create the training inside a Moodle course. First, I did work with their tech team and really showed them what Moodle was about and a little bit about what I knew about installing Moodle on their servers, and they agreed that this was the best way to go. What I did is they had a 90-page PDF manual that had contained a lot of great information, but just not in a very usable form. And they wanted to continue using chapters. So I created modules for each chapter. The chapters included information in there, and I created formative assessments in Google Forms. And each of the assessments in the chapter helped lead them to develop an implementation plan when they were done with this training program. Once they had completed all 8 chapters of the training program, they would basically have their implementation plan written out for them. The team did some evaluating of it. They had a few different changes to make to it, so we worked on that, and then I was very happy to launch the training with them, and their clients were very happy with the training, as was the company. It was a great opportunity to be working in the EdTech 512 class when I was developing this training program, because it helped me go through all the necessary steps to come out with a positive outcome. The MET program has been one of the best career moves I have made. It has opened up a whole new outlook on education and provided me with new opportunities I had never dreamed of. As I am finishing up my portfolio, I start my new position as an instructional designer with Michigan Virtual University. Thank you, Boise State. Thank you, professors and staff, for your hard work and dedication to the program. The pedagogy, knowledge, and skills I have obtained while working at the MET program are something I will carry with me throughout my career.